So I want you to just imagine for a second standing on the deck of a pitching dive boat.
Oh, that sounds rough already.
Right, it gets worse. You're in these biting 5-mile-an-hour offshore winds.
Ugh, miserable.
Exactly. And you're literally hovering your hands over a pot of boiling eggs.
Wait, boiling
Yeah,
eggs?
literally just to keep your fingers from going completely numb in the wind.
That's definitely not your typical weekend getaway.
No, it's really not. And you're bracing yourself to step off that deck into water that is 45 degrees.
Freezing, just absolutely freezing Atlantic water.
Yeah. And you know that 50 feet below you lies the skeletal remains of a 19th century armed steamer.
Which is incredible to think about.
It is. But here's the kicker. As you're zipping up your gear, getting ready to jump, a whale the size of a city bus breaches the surface.
Oh my God.
And it just begins actively circling your entry point.
Just like right where you're supposed to jump in.
Exactly. And that is the reality of modern maritime archaeology for this very specific group of seasoned Northeast divers.
It's just wild.
It really is. So, welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are exploring the wreck of the SS Delaware.
Yeah, and we're looking at this through some amazing, raw, on-the-water source material from a crew of divers.
Right, a group of guys, Joe, Nick, Howard, John, and Harry.
And we're completely bypassing this sterile museum experience today.
Oh, 100%. We're looking at history that is just actively colliding with nature.
Because the contrast between like a traditional museum and the SS Delaware is just absolute.
Yeah, tell me about that. Like, what makes it so different?
Well, a terrestrial museum curates history in a vacuum, right?
Right, everything is neat and tidy.
Exactly. Artifacts are stabilized, they're isolated behind, UV-protected glass.
Stripped of their context, basically.
Completely. But the Delaware is this uncontrolled biological engine.
I love that phrase, biological engine.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's an underwater time capsule, but the ocean has completely repurposed it.
Yeah.
The second a ship sinks, the marine environment just starts dismantling it and rebuilding it at the exact same time.
So it's not just a dead piece of wood.
Not at all. The
Okay.
history of the Delaware is totally intertwined with the natural world now.
Guarded by whales and crabs.
Actively guarded. It's fascinating.
Before we really jump into the mechanics of this site, though, I do want to clarify the tone of this deep dive for you, the listener.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up.
Because the term shipwreck, it carries this heavy cultural payload.
It's for sure. You immediately think of, like, terrifying disasters.
Right. Cinematic sinkings, desperate survival situations, the whole horror aspect.
Immense human tragedy.
Yeah, exactly. And while those elements are a massive part of maritime history, the source material we are unpacking today focuses entirely on the afterlife of this vessel.
Which is surprisingly vibrant.
It's incredibly vibrant. We are analyzing the joy of discovery here.
The scientific curiosity.
Yeah. And the complex ecosystem that thrives decades after the sinking.
It's really about what the ocean builds on top of what humanity leaves behind.
Which requires us to first understand, the foundation that the ocean is actually building upon.
Right, the ship itself.
Exactly. And the SS Delaware, it wasn't just some simple fishing trawler.
No, it had a very serious past. It was mobilized by the United States government during the Spanish-American War.
Wow, so it was military.
Yeah, it operated as an armed steamer.
Mm.
So that initial chapter of its life was strictly defined by military service.
Navigating some pretty specific geopolitical tensions, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
And the logistical demands of a late 19th century naval conflict.
So what did an armed steamer actually do back then?
They were crucial for things like patrolling, blockading ports, transporting heavy materials.
Just real workhorse vessels.
Precisely. They were built for utility and endurance, not comfort.
But then, after the Spanish-American War ended, the Delaware was demilitarized.
Right. It transitioned into private commerce.
It became a working cargo vessel moving goods up and down the East Coast.
Which is such an interesting duality.
It is. A machine built for war, seamlessly transitioning into an engine of capitalism.
And that duality is embedded right into the architecture of the ship.
But the architectural reality of the Delaware today is, well, it kind of defies expectations, doesn't it?
It really does. Because it's a wooden-hulled vessel.
And why is that surprising?
Because the conventional wisdom in maritime archaeology is that wooden ships in the open ocean just do not survive.
They just rot away.
Basically, yeah. They become victims of tornado navalis.
Tornado navalis. Wait, what is that?
Shipworms.
Oh, shipworms. Okay, I've heard of those.
Yeah, plus the relentless mechanical battering of the ocean currents. Usually the biology of wood decay in the ocean is just merciless.
So how do shipworms actually destroy a ship?
Well, they're actually these highly specialized bivalve mollusks that bore right into submerged wood.
Ugh, they just eat it.
Yeah, they digest the cellulose. In warmer tropical waters, a wooden hull can be reduced to this flat, unrecognizable pile of organic mush in just a matter of decades.
That's horrifying but fascinating. But the Delaware is off the coast of New Jersey.
Right, which is much colder.
Hmm,
But even in colder waters, the structural integrity of timber usually yields to saltwater corrosion and anaerobic bacteria.
right.
But the divers' accounts of the Delaware paint a radically different picture.
They say the massive wooden ribs of the hull are still standing completely proud of the seabed.
Which is practically unheard of.
They note that the wreck is, like, totally discernible.
Yeah, if the visibility clears even a little bit, a diver dropping down the anchor line can immediately orient themselves.
They can actually see the curvature of the bow.
Exactly. The heavy timber frames that form the skeleton of the ship are spaced perfectly.
So it creates this sort of avenue that divers can actually navigate.
You aren't just swimming over a chaotic debris field.
You are actively swimming through the rib cage of a 19th century Leviathan.
The rib cage of a Leviathan. That is a perfect way to put it.
But how? How did those ribs survive the shipworms and the bacteria?
It likely comes down to the very specific environmental conditions of the New Jersey coast.
The cold water.
Mostly, yeah. The consistent 45-degree water temperatures significantly slow down the metabolic rates of those wood-boring organisms.
So they're just too cold to eat the wood quickly.
Exactly. And furthermore, depending on how the ship settled, local currents deposit silt over time.
Oh, so it got buried.
Parts of the lower hull were likely buried in an anoxic layer of sand.
Anoxic meaning no oxygen, right?
Right. Without oxygen, you starve the bacteria,
Oh, wow.
which preserves those heavy lower timbers. It allows for this structural permanence that is incredibly rare for a wooden vessel of that era.
And that structural permanence is visually anchored by the heavy machinery that's left behind.
Yes, the steam engine.
The divers say it sits massively high up in the water column.
Entirely unbothered by the decay of the surrounding wood.
And from that engine block, there's this massive metal propeller shaft running the entire length of the aft section.
It must provide such a striking visual contrast.
It does. You've got these organic, stubbornly intact wooden ribs juxtaposed right against the heavy industrial iron of the propulsion system.
It creates a landscape that practically invites mythology.
It really does. And the Delaware has certainly generated its share of lore over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
In the Northeast diving community, it is persistently labeled as a treasure wreck.
Ah, the classic treasure wreck designation. It's such a fascinating psychological phenomenon in the diving community.
Why do you think that is? Why do we immediately jump to treasure?
Well, the moment a ship is known to have participated in commerce, rumors just inevitably manifest.
Like a forgotten save.
Exactly. A mislogged shipment of gold bullion or, a wealthy passenger's lost lockbox.
It taps into this very specific, almost cinematic desire, doesn't it?
Yeah, the desire to find something that fundamentally alters your life.
But the divers in our source material, they tackle this myth head on, and their reaction is honestly brilliant.
What do they say?
When the rumor of the Delaware sinking with a safe full of cash is brought up on the boat, Diver Joe immediately shuts it down.
He doesn't buy it.
Not at all. He just laughs and says, everything in print is a lie. It's all lies.
That is hilarious.
He looks at the treasure label as just a manufactured marketing tool.
He's not entirely wrong there.
Right. He points out that these write-ups are almost exclusively generated by people trying to sell diving magazines.
Or book seats on local charter boats.
Exactly. Joe is demonstrating the critical skepticism of a real veteran explorer.
He understands the economics of shipwreck lore. Embellishing the cargo of a wreck is practically a time-honored maritime tradition at this point.
I'm gonna sell those tickets.
Right. A charter boat captain needs paying customers, and the promise of a sunken safe is far more alluring to a novice diver than, the promise of looking at an old steam boiler.
For sure. But the veterans know the real historical value of the site has absolutely nothing to do with cartoonish bags of money.
No, the actual verified historical value is tied to a much cooler nickname.
The Giver of Bells.
The Giver of Bells. I love that.
It's such a great title. So explain the significance of a bell to a wreck diver.
Finding a ship's bell is essentially the apex achievement for a wreck diver.
Why is it so important?
We have to consider the metallurgical and historical function of the bell. Unlike the wooden ribs or the generic iron of the engine, the bell was specifically cast with the ship's name on it.
Oh, so it's the ultimate ID tag.
Exactly. It was the communicative heart of the vessel. They used it for signaling time, alerting the crew in heavy fog, coordinating shipboard life.
And it doesn't rust away.
No. Because it was cast in heavy brass or bronze to ensure acoustic resonance, it is practically immune to the corrosive forces that destroy the rest of the iron on the ship.
Wow, so it acts like the ultimate immutable black box of 19th century maritime identity.
That's a perfect analogy.
So the story of how the Delaware earned that nickname traces back to the evolution of maritime navigation itself.
Right, before the days of GPS.
Yeah, before sophisticated marine electronics, finding a submerged structure miles off the coast required land ranges.
Which is such a lost art.
It really is. A boat captain would have to triangulate their position over the open water by visually aligning specific, distant markers on the shoreline.
It sounds so difficult.
Imagine trying to line up a specific water tower with a notch in a distant tree line, and simultaneously align a lighthouse with a rocky outcropping.
It's essentially an analog geometry problem, but overlaid on a moving ocean.
Right, the ocean doesn't hold still for you.
No, the currents are pushing you, the wind is pushing you, and you have to maintain that exact visual intersection while dropping an anchor 50 feet down.
Just hoping you hook into the wreck and not just empty sand.
The local knowledge required to successfully range a wreck back then was immense. Captains guarded those visual coordinates fiercely.
I bet they did. So the Delaware was a land range wreck for years. It was relatively close to an inlet, but required that specific analog skill to hit.
But then technology caught up.
It did. Eventually, a dive boat equipped with modern marine electronics like advanced sonar and precise positioning systems went out and set a permanent buoy line on it.
They removed the analog guesswork.
Completely. And shortly after that modernization of access, a diver named Harry emerged from the 50-foot depths holding the first bell.
Oh, wow. What a moment.
And stamped clearly into the heavy metal was the word Delaware.
Which permanently ended any debate about the identity of the wreck.
It did. But ironically, it sparked an entirely new debate among the crew themselves.
But of course it did. Divers love to argue.
The source material highlights this continuous, really playful argument about the exact location of that bell when Harry found it.
What's the debate?
Well, one diver insists Harry found it sitting perfectly in the bow section, like exactly where it should have been when the ship went down.
Okay, that makes sense.
But another diver is equally convinced the bell was found entirely off the wreck, just resting alone in the sand.
That's quite a discrepancy.
Yeah, they even admit on camera that when they don't actually know the details of a story, they just make something up and try to deliver it with absolute conviction.
That's hilarious.
They literally use their video to publicly call out to Harry, demanding he settle the debate.
It reveals how these wrecks function as, social anchors for these groups.
Yes. The history of the Delaware isn't just about the Spanish-American War anymore. It's about the oral history generated by the people who visit it today.
And that social cohesion, that banter, it's absolutely necessary when you consider the physical demands of the environment they are operating in.
The camaraderie isn't just for entertainment.
Not at all. It is a psychological buffer against the extreme physical toll of diving in the North Atlantic.
And the environmental reality of this dive is brutal. Let's talk about the temperature.
Oh, it's 45 degrees.
The moment you step off that boat, you are submerged in a medium that is actively, aggressively stripping thermal energy from your body.
Yeah, people don't realize that water conducts heat roughly 25 times faster than air.
25 times.
Yeah. So at 45 degrees, the human body's immediate physiological response is severe vasoconstriction.
Meaning your blood vessels shrink.
Exactly. Blood is rapidly shunted away from your extremities to protect your core organs. Your manual dexterity just plummets.
You can't use your hands.
Right. And your breathing rates become really difficult to control. Even enclosed in a modern dry suit, the sheer thermodynamic drain of that water temperature causes immense caloric expenditure.
So you're just burning energy trying to survive.
The cold is this pervasive, constant adversary that dictates every single decision a diver makes down there.
Which perfectly explains the bizarre and brilliant scene playing out on the deck of the boat before the dive.
Back to the eggs.
Back to the eggs! You have these guys in highly advanced, incredibly expensive thermal gear standing around a steaming pot of boiling eggs.
Such a funny image.
They are using the hot eggs for immediate internal caloric heat, obviously, by eating them, but they are literally holding them in their palms to warm their hands in the freezing wind.
It's this perfectly pragmatic, completely analog solution to a severe environmental problem.
Happening right next to thousands of dollars of life support equipment.
The contrast in technology is striking. Like Howard, one of the divers, is showing off his new buoyancy control device.
The BCD, yeah.
But the feature the entire crew is just geeking out over isn't some advanced buoyancy algorithm or a specialized dump valve.
What is it?
It's the fact that the BCD has specific waffle-patterned pockets designed exclusively for a diver to slide their hands into for warmth.
Hand warmer pockets.
Yeah. Howard calls it the nicest gear he has ever owned, simply because it offers a marginal defense against the numbing cold of the Atlantic.
It really framed the descent for me in a specific way. Like, these guys are leaving the warm, egg-scented, familiar atmosphere of their boat.
Their mothership, essentially.
Yeah. They are strapping into highly complex life support systems, checking their thermal pockets, and deliberately stepping into an alien, hostile environment.
Where biological survival is basically impossible without their technology.
And the transition into that environment is visually jarring, too.
The North Atlantic is definitely not known for crystalline visibility.
Not at all. The water column is thick with particulate organic matter.
Plankton, suspended silt.
As you pull yourself down that anchor line, the ambient light rapidly diminishes. You are literally sinking through a heavy green gloom.
And the divers describe that exact phenomenon. You are dropping through the murk, and then, because of the incredible preservation we discussed earlier, the SS Delaware simply materializes beneath you.
Like a ghost ship.
Yeah, you don't hit a confusing pile of debris. The gloom parts just enough to reveal the towering steam engine or the sweeping curve of those wooden ribs.
The structure just announces itself.
It allows the divers to instantly orient themselves upon touchdown.
But the structure they land on is fundamentally different from the structure that originally sank.
We really have to analyze the mechanics of an artificial reef to understand what they're looking at.
Because the ocean floor in that region is predominantly flat sand and mud, right?
Exactly. It's basically a biological desert. But when you introduce a massive three-dimensional structure like a wooden ship, you immediately alter the local hydrodynamics.
So the ship acts as like a massive speed bump for the ocean currents.
Precisely. As the deep currents hit the hull of the Delaware, the water is forced upward, creating localized upwelling.
And what does that upwelling do?
It pulls nutrient-rich detritus from the sea floor straight into the water column. Those nutrients feed phytoplankton, which in turn attract zooplankton.
A whole food chain starts.
Exactly. And the sheer surface area of the wooden ribs provides a substrate for encrusting organisms, sponges, anemones, barnacles, to anchor themselves.
So the ship becomes this localized biological engine.
Drawing in bait fish, which then attract the apex predators.
And the divers observe the culmination of that biological engine firsthand. The wreck is swarming with blackfish.
A highly prized species.
Yeah, they utilize the heavy structure to hide from larger predators. But the dominant residents of this artificial reef are the Jonah crabs.
Oh, Jonah crabs. They are heavily armored, highly aggressive benthic predators.
They sound intimidating.
They thrive in the cold waters of the North Atlantic. They utilize the deep crevices of the steam engine and the overlapping wooden ribs as an impenetrable fortress.
The divers are astounded by the sheer size of the claws on these crabs.
I'm sure.
And they aren't just observing them, they are actively harvesting from the reef. Diver John specifically targets the Jonah crabs, and the crew discusses his highly specific processing technique.
How does he do it?
Rather than just breaking off the claws, which some people do, John captures the entire massive crab. He splits it directly up the center to flush and clean the internal cavity and cooks the entire body. He is utilizing the 19th century wreck exactly as the blackfish and the crabs are, as a functional, localized food web.
The harvesting of the crabs is a routine interaction with the reef. But the presence of that thriving ecosystem inevitably draws in much larger, far more complex intelligence.
The marine mammals.
Yes. The biological density of the Delaware doesn't just attract fish, it acts as a massive beacon for cetaceans.
And the sequence of wildlife encounters on this specific trip completely rewrites the tone of the expedition.
It's incredible.
Diver Nick completes his gear checks, right?
Uh-huh.
And he makes his giant stride entry off the side of the boat.
Okay.
The exact second he hits the water, displacing the surface with a loud splash, he is swarmed by a pod of dolphins.
Just instantly.
Instant.
See, the acoustic environment of the ocean is highly conductive. Sound travels nearly 5 times faster in water than in air.
Really? 5 times?
Yeah. So to a pod of dolphins navigating the area, the heavy splash of a diver entering the water is a massive acoustic anomaly.
It's like a dinner bell or an alarm.
Dolphins possess this intense, almost investigative curiosity. They process their environment through echolocation, so a sudden, large object dropping into the water column demands immediate inspection.
The guys remaining on the boat are leaning over the rail, just watching this unfold. They describe the dolphins shooting over at incredible speeds.
I can imagine.
Zipping cleanly around Nick as he just floats the surface. They're yelling down at him, "Who loves you, baby? Look at the dolphins!"
That's awesome.
It is this moment of pure, joyful interaction with a highly intelligent species that has actively chosen to engage with the divers.
But the dolphins were merely the vanguard.
Right, because the true shock of the expedition occurs when a vastly larger intelligence arrives on the scene.
The tension on the boat must have spiked.
Oh, it did. A massive whale approaches the dive site, and it doesn't just swim past on a migratory route. It deliberately approaches the dive boat.
It investigates the buoy line plunging down to the Delaware.
And it refuses to leave. It establishes a holding pattern right next to this tiny little dive vessel.
We really have to contextualize the scale of this encounter for a second.
Let's do.
A mature whale moving near a small dive boat is essentially a mountain in motion.
Yeah, they are unfathomably huge.
The hydrodynamic displacement alone is intimidating, just the water it pushes. When an animal of that sheer mass takes a focused, sustained interest in a human operation, the psychological impact on the divers is profound.
The power dynamic is instantly, overwhelmingly clear.
Absolutely.
The divers pull out their cameras, thankfully, and document the behavior, giving a real-time play-by-play that is just mesmerizing.
What is the whale doing?
It circles the boat for over 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It swims directly under the bow, passing literally inches from the hull.
Oh.
Then it initiates a series of incredibly deliberate maneuvers. It turns onto its side and eventually rolls completely onto its back at the surface.
Specifically exposing its massive white underbelly to the crew on the boat.
Yes, and it sweeps its massive pectoral fins through the water, displaying the intricate coloration.
The behavior you are describing, the lateral rolling, the ventral presentation, the pectoral fin displays, is highly complex.
It feels like it's putting on a show for them.
While it is tempting to anthropomorphize this as putting on a show in cetacean mechanics, this often relates to visual fields.
Oh, really? How so?
A whale's eyes are positioned laterally on the sides of its head. By rolling onto its side or back, it is manipulating its field of vision to get a comprehensive binocular look at the bizarre object floating on the surface.
Oh, it's just trying to get a good look at them.
Exactly. Furthermore, exposing the bright white underbelly, which actually breaks their natural oceanic countershading, can be an investigative or even playful display of dominance and curiosity.
Well, one of the divers in the water experiences that dominance in a deeply vulnerable, highly humorous way.
Oh no.
The transcript provides this incredibly grounded anecdote. One of the guys is clinging to the side of the boat in the water, attempting to take a mid-dive bathroom break.
The absolute worst time to be surprised by an apex creature.
Literally the worst time. He recounts the story later, explaining how he was just hanging there, taking care of business, when he suddenly had to, quote, shut down quick.
I bet he did.
Out of the green 45-degree gloom, this massive, bust-sized leviathan materialized directly next to him.
Terrifying.
He was literally paralyzed. He was afraid to leave the physical security of the boat hull because the whale was occupying the exact space they needed to enter and exit the water.
It forces a massive perspective shift, doesn't it?
Totally.
You descend to a shipwreck, armed with sophisticated thermal BCDs and high-pressure air tanks, feeling like a technological master of the environment.
Yeah, you feel invincible.
And then a creature the size of a city bus quietly appears next to you, completely unbothered by the cold, effortlessly holding its breath, and you are reminded that you are a fragile, temporary visitor.
So why do you think the whale was there in the first place? Is it purely the acoustic curiosity of the boat engine and the divers splashing?
Or is a whale drawn to the exact same underwater structures that maritime archaeologists are?
Right. What's your take?
It is almost certainly the latter. We established that the SS Delaware is a massive biological engine.
Right. It produces bait fish.
Immense quantities of bait fish, which attract larger schooling fish, which in turn attract marine mammals. A whale operating in the coastal Atlantic likely views wrecks like the Delaware not as historical artifacts, but as established, reliable foraging grounds.
So the divers basically park their boat over the whale's local grocery store?
Exactly. The whale's curiosity was likely piqued by these strange, neoprene-clad creatures awkwardly invading its feeding territory.
That makes so much sense. So they survive the psychological shock of the whale, they push through the 45-degree water, bypass the fortified Jonah crabs, and finally reach the seabed.
Because at its core, despite the incredible biology, this is an archaeological mission.
It is. They are there to unearth the history of the Delaware, and the artifacts they recover act as forensic micro-stories of the ship's existence.
Yes.
But the most abundant artifact they find isn't from the 19th century at all.
Ah, the sedimentary layer of modern interaction.
Exactly. The divers describe a scene on the wreck that defies all romanticized expectations of shipwreck diving.
What do they see?
The wooden ribs and the steam engine are literally buried under thousands upon thousands of modern lead fishing sinkers.
This is astounding.
One diver reports finding a concentrated area where the lead sinkers were piled an astonishing 6 inches deep.
6 inches of solid lead.
He said it looked as if a massive industrial barge had sailed directly over the Delaware during a storm and jettisoned an entire cargo hold of lead weights right onto the wreck.
The mechanics of how that much lead accumulates are actually fascinating.
How does that even happen?
Well, we noted that the wreck attracts blackfish, and human fishermen are well aware of this. For decades, charter boats and private fishermen have navigated to the Delaware's coordinates to drop their lines.
Okay.
A heavy lead sinker plunges down. The hook is baited for blackfish, but the ocean currents sweep the line directly into the unyielding wooden ribs.
Or the intricate ironwork of the steam engine.
Exactly. The line snags, the fisherman pulls until the monofilament snaps, and the lead weight is permanently deposited on the site.
And multiply that by thousands of fishermen over decades.
And you get a 6-inch layer of lead.
It fundamentally changes how we view the site. The ocean is literally accumulating human history in geological layers.
It is.
The 19th century armed steamer serves as the foundational bedrock. And sitting directly on top of it, completely obscuring the historical hardware, is a massive sedimentary layer of 20th and 21st century recreational fishing tackle.
It perfectly illustrates that the SS Delaware is not a closed chapter of history. It has been continuously interacted with by humanity every single day since it sank.
But once the divers push past that layer of lead, they begin extracting the actual structural hardware of the vessel.
The stuff they came for.
Right. They recover these massive, heavy-duty brass spikes that were used to fasten the heavy wooden timbers together.
Oh, wow.
The divers bring them to the surface, and they are heavily encrusted with marine growth. They look like jagged pieces of a coral reef.
But underneath,
When they scrape the biology away, the 19th century brass underneath is still gleaming.
which makes sense because the metallurgical choice of brass is highly specific.
Why not use iron?
In shipbuilding, iron fasteners are susceptible to rapid galvanic corrosion when exposed to salt water.
Galvanic corrosion.
Yeah, basically it causes them to rust, expand, and eventually shatter the surrounding wood. It's a chemical reaction.
That sounds counterproductive for a boat.
Very. Brass, being an alloy of copper and zinc, provides immense tensile strength while being highly resistant to the corrosive chloride environment of the ocean.
So the fact that the brass is still gleaming beneath the incrustation is a testament to the industrial engineering of the era.
Absolutely. It was built to last.
They also find broad sheets of copper hull sheathing.
Anti-fouling sheathing, right?
Yeah. The sheathing still has the small, precise rivets attached to it, but the divers discover a piece of sheathing that tells a uniquely layered story.
What's the story?
So stamped proudly into the copper is the word patented, right? A mark of 19th century industrial pride.
Sure.
However, stamped onto the reverse side is the fraction 1/2, and the entire piece of copper has been deliberately folded over on itself.
Oh, wow. The folding and the fractional stamp indicate it was repurposed.
Yes. The divers realized that somewhere along the line, long after the ship sank, a modern fisherman likely snagged this piece of loose copper sheathing,
Pulled it up to his boat.
realized it was heavy metal, stamped a weight designation on it, 1/2 ounce, folded it up, and threw it right back down as a makeshift fishing sinker to catch a blackfish.
That is a staggering physical intersection of timelines.
Isn't it?
You have a piece of patented anti-fouling copper, originally designed to protect a Spanish-American war vessel from shipworms, physically modified by a modern angler to catch dinner.
The history is literally folding in on itself.
That is just incredible. Did they find any other hardware?
They did. The industrial artifacts continue. They recover a massive boiler control weight stamped deeply with the number 10.
That would be a brutal, heavy, utilitarian piece of iron used to control the steam pressure.
Exactly. And then they find an artifact that completely baffles the crew.
Oh, a mystery item.
It is a heavy, pockmarked lump of metal. One diver describes its irregular pitted surface as looking like a metallic asteroid.
The identification of ambiguous hardware often relies on contextual guesswork. What were their theories?
The initial logical theory was that it was a fragment of a valve wheel from the steam engine that had just sheared off and degraded in the sand.
Makes sense given the boiler weight.
But another diver studied the specific curvature of the metal, the way it flared out, and delivered a deadpan analysis.
What did he say?
He goes, "That looks like a handle to a chamber pot."
Oh my goodness.
Right. Moving rapidly from the high-pressure engineering of the boiler room to the grim realities of shipboard sanitation.
It highlights the dual nature of the ship perfectly. I mean, it was a machine, but it was also habitat.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into the final category of artifacts the crew recovered.
The personal items.
Yes. Beyond the brass spikes and boiler weights, they found the intimate, everyday objects of the people who lived and worked on the Delaware.
That's always the most fascinating part of archaeology to me.
They unearthed Indian head pennies, an incredibly ornate silver dining fork, and even chunks of raw coal from the ship's fuel bunkers.
The silver fork and the currency speak directly to the Delaware's post-war life as a commerce vessel.
Not exactly military rations.
No, it suggests a dining room environment where passengers or officers attempted to maintain Victorian table standards while navigating the heavy swells of the Atlantic.
But the most evocative everyday item recovered on this dive is a piece of shattered glass.
Ooh.
A diver brings up a large fragment of a glass bottle thick with mud, and as he wipes the muck away on the deck of the boat, the embossed lettering becomes perfectly clear.
What does it say?
It reads, "Works," followed by Boulevard, and finally the complete phrase, "Jacksonville Steam Bottle Works, Jacksonville, Florida."
Wow. An intact piece of industrial glass manufacturing from Florida, pulled out of the freezing mud off the coast of New Jersey.
That bottle fragment acts as the ultimate piece of forensic evidence.
How so?
Think about it. If the boiler weight proves the existence of the engine room, and the silver fork proves the existence of the dining room, the Jacksonville bottle proves the existence of the trade routes.
It provides a tangible map of the Delaware's commerce era.
Exactly. You can envision the ship steaming south to Florida. A sailor or a merchant purchasing a bottled beverage from a local steam works on a hot Jacksonville day.
And carrying that heavy glass bottle all the way back up the eastern seaboard.
Until the ship met its end in the 45-degree waters of the North Atlantic.
It fundamentally humanizes the wreck. I mean, a brass spike is fascinating engineering, but a discarded glass bottle is a direct connection to human behavior.
It forces you to consider the individual who drank from it.
The merchant who sold it, and the complex web of coastal trade that connected the warm south to the freezing north.
It is a powerful realization when you hold that bottle fragment or that silver fork and recognize that the very last person to touch that object before you pulled it out of the sand was a human being living in the late 19th century.
The sheer passage of time just collapses in your hand.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of diving the SS Delaware. It is a location defined entirely by its contradictions.
Absolutely. It is a monument to an era of rapid industrialization.
Representing both government mobilization for war and the relentless push of private commerce.
It is a structure engineered with patented copper sheathing and heavy brass spikes designed to conquer the ocean.
Yet the ocean conquered it and subsequently transformed it.
It is no longer a monument to human engineering. It is a thriving, chaotic biological metropolis.
It is a localized upwelling engine that sustains massive Jonah crabs, schools of blackfish, highly intelligent dolphins, and apex whales that use it as a neighborhood grocery store.
History and nature are not politely coexisting down there. They are locked in a complex, active tangle.
And I want you, the listener, to reconsider what a historical site actually is. We are so conditioned to accept the sanitized, climate-controlled version of history presented in a terrestrial museum.
We view history as something dry, cataloged, and safe.
But the Delaware proves that history is actively hostile.
It is sitting in the crushing dark, surrounded by 45-degree water that can kill a human in minutes.
It is guarded by massive predators and buried under decades of modern debris.
Extracting that history requires immense physical endurance, advanced thermal technology, and a willingness to step into an environment where you simply do not belong.
Every artifact brought to the surface, whether it is a beautifully preserved Florida glass bottle or a tarnished, repurposed copper weight, is a hard-won victory against an ocean that desperately wants to erase it.
It really is a battle of attrition.
And it leaves us with one final, deeply provocative concept to consider as we conclude this deep dive. A thought experiment regarding the relentless accumulation of time.
Ah, the sedimentary layers of the Anthropocene.
Exactly. We discussed the distinct layers of the wreck. The 19th century wooden and brass foundation, completely buried beneath a 6-inch deep, chaotic layer of 20th and 21st century lead fishing sinkers.
Right.
Now, project this site forward. Imagine a maritime archaeologist visiting the exact GPS coordinates of the SS Delaware 500 years from now in the year 2526.
A completely unfathomable technological era.
When that future explorer drops down through the water column and lands on whatever remains of that site, what will they consider to be the most vital, the most valuable historical artifact?
That's a great question.
Will they be searching for the 19th century ship's bell-stamped Delaware, or will the original wooden wreck have entirely vanished by then?
Leaving those thousands upon thousands of toxic lead fishing sinkers behind.
Exactly. Will those sinkers be carefully excavated, cataloged, and placed behind smudge-proof glass as priceless, primitive relics of early 21st century human behavior?
It's entirely possible.
We aren't just exploring a time capsule. We are actively dumping our own history into it. Who knows how the ocean will curate our contributions?
That is something to think about next time you drop a line in the water.
It really is. Thanks for taking the plunge with us.